And we're live!
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar with me, James Smith.
Me, Neil Brock.
And me, James Eatock.
It's a movie podcast!
We can do characters that fly and shoot laser beams and do woo.
Beneath all of that, it's all about friendship.
Playing the drums until his hands are bleeding.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each head off and watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone, then waffle about it for your listening pleasure.
Furthermore, if you want to join in and suggest a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Off Radar Podcast or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share and review. It really helps getting the pod out there. For now, strap in, turn the volume up and let's go
Off Radar. I think you need to turn off Eatock's camera already.
Here we are again on Off Radar, and I am joined by Nigel Brock.
Hello.
And James Eatock.
Hello, James Smith, because James Smith didn't say his name. You always have to introduce yourself, James.
Do I don't normally.
Well, we should
do I introduce myself, or maybe you guys should?
No, but it's fine. Your face is all over this. It's great.
Oh yeah, it is. It's me, isn't it?
Your grubby paws all over Off Radar.
James Smith.
Yeah, the James Smith podcast.
That's a great title. I like that.
So today we're talking about
James Smith.
Tenet, 2020. Directed by, I nearly said Kevin Nolan there. Bolton Wanderers.
Now the staff of Everton.
Kevin Nolan. He retired from playing for Bolton and directed Tenet.
Sorry.
Christopher Nolan, and starring John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Kenneth Branagh, and probably a lot more people, but they're the only people I noted down. And
Michael Caine.
James
Eatock's in it.
Picked this movie for us to chat about. I won't ask you to give us a synopsis unless you know what the hell happened in it.
Oh no, please do, because I'll try.
So tell us a little bit about. Well, first of all, I hadn't seen this film, and Nigel, have you seen this film?
No, I had not. To be honest, I was a little bit trying to avoid watching this film, so I really appreciate the fact James Eatock picked it, and I had to spend 2.5 hours.
Sorry, why did you have to? Why were you trying to avoid it, Nigel?
Just because.
Don't give away your opinion yet. Although
partly because it was supposed to be the saviour of cinema during obviously the COVID lockdown. Partly because I think some of Christopher Nolan's films, some of them I absolutely love, absolutely adore, like Prestige, particularly.
Love Prestige.
But that it kind of, I felt from some of his more recent films, and it's really harsh to say this, that he's kind of been disappearing up his own backside.
I was just about Nige. Literally,
I feared that may be what was happening with Tenet, and some of the reviews I sort of read as well indicated that possibly could be the case, although we may have a different opinion from that. So yeah, it wasn't on my urgent to watch list.
I feel like Nigel's just given his review, but fair enough.
But I loved it. Or did I?
Twist.
Finish.
Twist. I actually really loved the movie.
What a twist.
So for this podcast episode, I want us to do it backwards.
Okay, yeah.
One of us has to do it forwards, the other one does it backwards, and
and also maybe if we do it backwards,
just shouting a lot.
Yeah, no, if we do it backwards, maybe it will make more sense as well. So
I hadn't seen it. Had you seen it before?
Yeah, so I saw Tenet during, I think it was when lockdown eased back in 2020 in the summer. I think it was like June or July maybe. My friend and I went to a cinema in Muswell Hill, the Everyman, which is a very spacious cinema with your own kind of little cubicle seating areas, as well as a bar, which obviously wasn't serving. But you're all masked up, and it was crazy to think it was the one film I saw in 2020 because didn't see any films at the start of the year, and then actually tell a lie, I did see Rise of the Skywalker at the very start of January, like January the 3rd. Of 2020. Anyway, that's a podcast for another time. So yeah, just saw Tenet, was like, I'm going to go and see a movie, and it's this big bombastic movie. And once I come out of the cinema, I did my little Instagram brief review. I was like, it's a great movie and it's very unique and blah blah blah. And then you go back and watch it and you're like, wow, I was on crack.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too. Use it carefully.
So our hero, who is he called Protagonist? He hasn't got a name. Yeah, Protagonist.
Yeah.
He's a CIA agent. We know that much. And he goes to I think he's in Russia and he's trying to save a bunch of people in like a hostage situation. It's like,
I believe it's the Ukraine, but yes.
Oh man, my bloody...
Again.
We got it wrong straight away. The most complicated part of the film. And sorry.
So it's set in 1980s USSR.
Arnie's in a toga.
Arnie's in it.
Zangief does the spinning pile driver.
Oh man, now that's the film I want to see. So yeah, they're trying to say that it's a hostage situation, and our protagonist is trying to save the day, or trying to free the hostages or whatever. Even that was like, okay, I think I know what's going on. Then at some point, suddenly, he's in a situation where he sees a bullet kind of reverse out of the water, and he's like, what? So he's a bit confused by that.
Check the magazine.
How?
One of these bullets is like us, travelling forwards through time. The other one's going backwards. Can you tell which is which?
The next thing he's in, and it's a very Christopher Nolan shot, it's like he's in a very public area on some train tracks with I know they're industrial trains, but you think people couldn't see what's happening. Anyway, I think one of his colleagues has been killed, and he's like going to be tortured if he doesn't give up what he knows, blah blah blah, and he's having like his teeth extracted, and so he quickly pops a cyanide tablet because I'm too loyal, and then he wakes up and he's alive, and they were like, the cyanide tablet, it was just a test, and by passing this test you are now part of Tenet. And it's like, well, what's Tenet? And it's like, it's not just the title of this movie you're in, it's a secret organization, and then we get, he and us, the audience, we are explained in what I would deem Saturday morning cartoon terms. Maybe I've seen it in Scooby-Doo, where they explain how things move backwards. We're educated on inversion. I think there's another term for it. Anyway, of like things running backwards.
How can it move before I touch it?
From your point of view, you caught it, but from the bullet's point of view, you dropped it.
And when you spend about more than 10 seconds thinking about it, you're like, yeah, this is bullshit. But you fall into you get caught up in the movie. It's like, wow, this is cool. Bullets go backwards into guns. Great. So there's this, and then it goes from this, right? Okay, we've established the trope of the movie, I guess, which is inanimate objects can move backwards in time. So that's a rather fascinating take. Didn't know it was become the entire movie, but there's this weird, almost like seemingly unnecessary sub-story in which Mr. Protagonist, Billy, we're going to call him, in order to connect with the big baddie, who is Kenneth Banner, as Smith called him, I'll call him Banner, Bruce Banner, trying to connect him, he basically goes through this whole art forgery scenario with Kenneth Branagh's estranged wife, and it's this thing where he's trying to get in with the baddie, so he's with with the estranged wife, and it turns out because she falsely certified a Goya painting, that's the hold that Kenneth Branagh has over it. It's like, I will do evil and you will help me be evil because I know you gave. It's like, that's not okay, fine, we'll go with that. And the estranged wife, by the way, is this stunning, tall, blonde woman. So tall, she must be like 7 foot. I'm not joking either. It was kind of distracting, the movie. We're in the cinema, me and my mate. My mate kept turning to me going, how tall is she? Because she dwarfed old Washington. That's his name, isn't it? Yeah, because he's the son of Denzel.
It's Denzel's son, yeah.
Denzel's son, yeah. And it's but she's so tall, and it was jarring at times. There's nothing wrong with women being taller than guys, but in that kind of scenario, it's like, why are you trying to help her? She looks like she could kick so much ass. She could kick Zangief's ass, going back to Nigel's earlier point. So, yeah, right, okay, we've falsely identified the painting. Then he's talking to an arms dealer who's the one dealing in backwards bullets. Then he hooks up with Robert Pattinson, who I think is the best thing in this movie. For me, like, I knew him from the Twilight movies and this, that, and the other. But in this film, I thought he had charm and character. And I was like, I really enjoyed Robert Pattinson in this. Anyway, blah, 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 booty, blah, blah, blah. He, let me have a look at my notes here, which I made.
She's 6'3", just for clarification.
Oh, okay. She was in The Night Manager, wasn't she? Which was a BBC British series, and she plays exactly the same character in this that she does in.
Oh, right, okay.
And Hugh Laurie in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So then Robert Pattinson and protagonist Billy, they have to go and steal a painting because of course they do. So they go to this heist. They're in this airport, and like the airport heist, they're trying to get this painting from this big. It's a pretty cool action scene in terms of security, and they've got to get through these things and then they bump into like two guys, if I remember rightly, who kind of confront them, but they're moving backwards, and it's like, oh, backwards fighting. So obviously these guys are inverted, and but even at that point, you know exactly who they are. It's so stupid. It's like you're watching him, and it's like, well, this is obviously himself because he's got, you know what I mean? Anyway, so it's like, okay, right, oh, they're fighting backwards. That's clever. I think they did that in a Carry On movie. Anyway,
they did it in an episode of Red Dwarf as well.
Yeah, the backwards episode. Can we review that instead? The backwards episode of Red Dwarf is one of the best ever. When the end gag is the cat goes to take a shit, and he just comes up from behind the bush. That is one of the best endings ever.
I think this film was based on that episode of Red Dwarf, and then they just took some drugs.
But it's funny how in a half-hour television show made more sense. So yeah, then the hero meets the big bad. He was Kenneth Branagh doing what I call a James Eatock Russian accent, which is, so you want to steal the painting and you work for me? I'm big baddie. I am Kenneth Branagh, classically trained English actor.
How did we get Kenneth Branagh on this podcast? Smith. You pulled out all the stops this week.
Smith just does it all. He's like, he knows Kenneth Branagh, or Kenneth Banner. Big old Ken Banner. So anyway, he meets him.
Kenneth, we've got someone on the phone. This is your agent. They want Kenneth Banner for a podcast.
Yeah, but
are you
if
interested?
you speak in Russian?
I can do this.
The filthy business that put those clothes on your back and our boy in his school, that you thought you could negotiate your way around.
Осталось 10 минут.
This is where the film, I mean, we're in the cinema, you could just look at everybody's face, as many people as there were in there, and we were all just like, we're not the only ones thinking the same thing, right? It was the scene where now the protagonist is mates with Kenneth Branagh, and they're on the boat, and you can't hear a goddamn word they say because the sound mix is atrocious. And like after I came out the film, me and my mate looked at reviews on it was just like, they said, oh, by the way, the sound mix is purposefully, loud at times. It's like, yeah, but I couldn't hear what they were saying, and there was like a vital part of the film. But anyway, we're not done with the plot yet. So anyway, the hero meets. No, we must, Smith, because there's a reason this film was made. It's because it's a very clever movie. It keeps telling us. So then of course, he speaks to the Russian. They become mates because he kind of saves his life because the estranged wife, if I remember rightly, tries to kill him on a yacht. It's like, okay, but he doesn't. She doesn't get reprisal. Anyway. Then it's time to steal some plutonium, and it turns out it's not plutonium, it's like this artifact. And that's like a pretty cool action scene where they're on the motorway or the freeway, and they're trying to chase down Kenneth Branagh, but Kenneth Branagh, there's like all these inverted cars and stuff's going backwards, and it's
a bit
like
Matrix 2, isn't it? There was a scene like that.
Yeah, it's a bit, basing its certain action scenes on a film from 2003. So our hero and Robert Pattinson, they try and ambush the convoy. Everything's going backwards. Then at one point they're kidnapped. Then they see this thing where Kenneth Branagh is behind a glass screen because he's in the inverted realm, as it were, and he shoots her with an inverted bullet. And I still don't know what the hell that means. So kind of like I said, this is kind of partly memory, partly kind of skimming through the Wikipedia thing. But I'll just quickly go on Wikipedia and let me just copy and paste a paragraph. So give me a second, just so like to prove that I'm not as confused as everybody else. Paste. Right, okay, I got prepared like copy and paste really. Okay, this is from Wikipedia. So obviously Wikipedia can be edited, but this is clearly what they're explaining the situation that I'm trying to. So ready. In the warehouse, the inverted Sator, so Sator is Kenneth Branagh's character. In the warehouse, the inverted Sator shoots Cat with an inverted round, while the non-inverted Sator demands the location of the artifact. Tenet operatives led by Ives arrive and rescue the protagonist, and Sator escapes into the turnstile. The group takes Kat through the turnstile, inverting them and reversing Kat's bullet wound. The now inverted protagonist travels back in time to the ambush site where he attempts to retrieve the artifact but is incepted by Sator. The protagonist's car is overturned and catches fire, but Neil saves him and reveals he is a member of Tenet. I mean, that's from the fucking Wikipedia thing, and even that, I'm like, what? So anyway, the basically movie ends with a huge battle that looks like something out of Halo, where it's like the red and blue team. They're one. I mean, it's a novel. It's a unique idea, which I think this whole film is just one big unique idea. It's one crew, one team moving forwards through time, one team moving backwards through time, with explosions going off. And I remember turning to my mate in the cinema again and saying, "Who's firing at them? Like, there's all these explosions. Where are the baddies? Because all we see is Kenneth Branagh and like a few heavies. But there's this huge war scenario where there's all these explosions. It's like, right, goodies and baddies, and they've all got to get to this thing. And then there's this big twist where Robert Pattinson's like, hey, you trained me. It's just like, okay. And then the film kind of ends, and you're like, well done, Tenet. You were a film. And that's it. And that, honestly, that is... like, I came out of that film going, you know, you were more wowed by the visuals, and don't get me wrong, in places it is really unique, and you're like, that is really cool, that is and then like just other parts when you kind of, I think it's a film that I would maybe recommend for a laugh if I hate someone, but at the same time,
you obviously hate us too.
Yeah, that's why I picked it. Well, no, I picked it because I thought, like, I think it's almost a fascinating movie in one way, because it's a Christopher Nolan film. Yeah, what's the Inception? That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Inception. That's a fantastic movie. I love that movie. That's a great movie.
But people did complain that was overly complex. But compared to this, I would say it pales in
Inception
significance.
was
Absolutely.
Inception was like we could understand the layers and stuff, and there's a little like to and fro here. But this movie, I thought, and Nigel said it best, and it was in my notes right here on my screen. Movie up its own arse, simple as that.
Yeah.
I want to like this movie, I really do, and I think part of me likes certain aspects of it. For the most part, though, it's a bit wank.
Can I offer a completely different take on the film?
Go on,
please. So for me, it is very clear what this film is. For me, it is basically Christopher Nolan making a James Bond film. That is what this film is. You've got the set piece at the beginning. You've got the girl. You've got the bad guy with the crazy accent who wants to end the world.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You've got all the set pieces. You've got the car chase. You've got the heist. You've got all the locations. You've got Oslo. You've got somewhere in Greece. You've got, I can't even remember where half the locations are.
Yeah.
You've even got, at one point, he says, oh, I will cut off your balls and slit your throat and then put your balls in your neck so you choke on your own balls. It's like, if that isn't a classic James Bond baddie way to kill someone, I don't think that another one exists. It's like completely overblown, over the top, ridiculous. But the problem is, Christopher Nolan cannot go out and make a James Bond film. He is not allowed to do that. So what he's done is he's put this James Bond film inside an absolutely ludicrous sort of time travel, reverse dimension, whatever you want to call it, concept. And for me as well, he's put someone in the lead who just almost has like... in fairness, it's probably like part of what he was trying to achieve, but there's no like personality, there's no warmth, there's nothing from that character, there's nothing to really feel for that character. And the woman,
or lack of.
Exactly, and the woman as well, like her entire motive, this entire film is like, oh, my son, I've got to save my son, and it's just like, there's nothing to this woman, there is no layer, it's just like, oh, my son. It's like she's written appallingly for a woman character in a modern film. Honestly, I was cringing every time she was almost saying anything on screen. And I love James Bond films. Like, I love the terrible James Bond films. I love the classics. Unfortunately, the lead is more like a George Lazenby than a Sean Connery, so that really holds it back.
Done, yeah.
But I also think that just the set pieces don't make up for the confusion, the length, 2.5 hours. God, it was a struggle to get through it. Yeah, it just seemed so long, and I just didn't think there was a conclusion. I really didn't find Robert Pattinson that good in it. I didn't find anyone that good in it. I really just like no one in that cast aside from Michael Caine, who's in it for about a minute, and the guy who was also in Damned, a TV show. He played like the guy who helped in the plane heist with the gold and stuff. No one other than like those two people came out of it with any real credit for me. And like Christopher Nolan is fantastic at sort of creating visual films, and there was a lot of elements of this film where like some of the visual shots, certainly in some of the grand locations, were absolutely incredible when you're just kind of looking at it and you're sort of drooling thinking this looks amazing.
This is where our worlds collide.
But the substance, the plot, the dialogue, the acting, for me, it just felt really subpar, and it kind of backed up the reason why I didn't really want to watch it. It kind of had everything that I didn't really want. And again, sort of going back to the Bond bit as well, you've got the big sort of fight at the end. You've got the blue team and the red team. I swear, like, that's in Thunderball or one of the classic Bond films where there's something exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's so kind of cliched, and it's done backwards. And there's random characters that come in that stage. You're like, who is this person? What's going on? And there's a guy who basically was supposed to be Tom Hardy, who clearly they couldn't get Tom Hardy, so get some guy who's like trying to be Tom Hardy. And it's just like, this is all very strange. And yeah, it just didn't really do enough for me. But the only like little bit of random trivia I have for it, the last set piece, like the red team, blue team, each of them sat on their watch like 10 minutes. So it's 10 minutes going forward for one team, 10 minutes going back for the other. If you put 10 and 10 together, back to front, it's Tenet. So 10, 10.
Right.
So there you go. There's my
so clever. I mean, I'm not insulting you. I mean, like, I think that sums up the film, doesn't it?
It's reversing the flow of time. Doesn't us being here now mean it never happened?
You know, Nolan, I like some of his films. I, like you said, Nigel, I really like Prestige. I think it's a really underrated film. Some people don't love Memento, but I like Memento.
Oh, Memento.
I thought Inception, again, really good film. I think what he did with The Dark Knight was good. Then he did Dunkirk, and that was a sign. What did you think I was going to say?
Did he do Interstellar as well?
He did Interstellar, yeah.
See, Interstellar, I think, was the tipping point for me.
See, Interstellar was okay. I enjoyed it, but
I did, yeah.
But then for me, it was Dunkirk. It was a war film, but it was the beginning of the end of story for him. He thought, I'm just going to have lots and lots of action and have some fun. And he's just, like, he's written very good films in the past, or at least, been a part of them and directed them. I take it he wrote Tenet as well.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Or he must have. But anyway, so it got to Dunkirk, and then I was like, okay, this is really disappointing in one of the biggest films of that year. And then it gets to Tenet. This is a film I was actually looking forward to. So unlike Nigel, I was like, if this is meant to be like Inception, which is what people said it was going to be like, I'm quite up for this. However, God Almighty,
it was.
Did I
Inception.
watch probably one of the worst, overhyped, shittest films, and that's probably being kind, that I have ever seen. And I was not only disappointed, but angry, and that is ridiculous to say. I mean, you guys have said it already, but this is what I wrote. I wanted to love this film, but it was a bloated, self-indulgent middle finger up to the audience, and like you've talked about story, about characters. I don't care. I don't care about one of those characters, because not one of them had a backstory at all.
The film didn't have characters or a story. That's the biggest problem about it.
Exactly. And, this is a writer and director who has made films with that. So to abandon it is almost astonishing. Like, that you can make complex films and you can still care. Like Inception, even if, you might not like it, but... Leonardo DiCaprio's character has a huge amount of backstory with his wife and the children, and you do root for him, even if you don't fully know what's going on all the time. With this, there's no clue what's going on, and I honestly didn't know what's going on.
That test you passed? Not everybody does. Welcome to the afterlife.
Then, like, the one thing I will say, like you said, like, the action sequence are amazing, but it's not enough.
Yeah, but of course it's not. It's what it is. And a good sound mix as well, so you don't have to...
The sound mix, like, I found astonishing as well. It's like, how can you say that you don't want people to hear what they're saying? You might as well have the film in silence. I mean, just don't have them speak if you're going to be that clever. So I put the subtitles on, but I did that after an hour, and by that point I was lost.
There were some people who kind of mentioned that because obviously he'd written the script and because obviously he'd seen it put together so many times when he was doing the sound mix, because he was already so familiar with what was being said, he wasn't necessarily paying as much attention to that coming across clearly on screen.
You know, like a good sound engineer with a budget of $200 million. I'm sorry, but it's no excuse. It's like you always have to think about your audience. As an editor, like you watch films over and over again, and you know it takes a producer to come in and say, can you bring the audio down a bit? But
I was going to say, I think that might be going forward Nolan's biggest problem, is that he may not he might need people like overseeing him saying, we're going to hire you to direct this film, but we're still the ones in charge. And I worry that maybe going forward he doesn't have enough. He's just surrounded by too many yes men who are just like, yep, sound mix is great.
It definitely seems that way with this film, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and
it's self-indulgent.
It's almost like this generation's Waterworld. You know, it's a film.
Oh, that's a good shout. That's a good shout.
A film that had a lot of promise. That was probably, like you said, the savour of the pandemic. A great film to see at the cinema. Like a really probably promising, good young actor. And it's an utter letdown. The other crazy thing for me is on IMDb, it's still got good reviews.
Yeah, 7.5, and the critical reviews are 69, which is like a rough average of 7. So we are in the minority of not liking this film. There are more people who like this film.
Bear in mind, like I mean, I'm not going to go and try and find it, but when I kind of came out of the cinema, my review was probably like, oh, this is like an 8 out of 10 movie, because I remember coming out and just, you get caught up in that whole thing, and then as the days and weeks went on, it was just like, oh. I remember one, like I made a comment like, pretty tricky to understand, but the visuals are blah. And one person said, I didn't find it difficult to understand. It's like, really? Because I think even the director found it difficult to understand.
That's really interesting. I hadn't read anything about the whole not understanding it before, so I didn't know about that. So I just went into it watching like you would any other film, but it sounds like it's a real common thing.
But I think it's one of those things as well where I'm sure I've read interviews with Nolan since where he doesn't so much say, oh, we just do our own science or anything like that, but the impression I get is he's almost at times saying, oh, just don't overthink it. It's like, but you're telling us to overthink it. You can't then say to us, you can't throw a bunch of stuff at us and go, oh, it does make sense, trust me. And it's like, yeah, but we want to understand it. That's like saying, here's a mathematical equation, here's the number 2 at the end of like a bunch of binary code and stuff, here's the number 2. Don't worry, that all makes sense. And it's like, yeah, but I want to know how we got to there. And I think that's the biggest problem with Tenet, is that, for me anyway, is you're sat there going, oh, what a set piece and what an action, and oh, what a novel idea. But you come away going, I've gained nothing from this movie. There's nothing I can reflect on and go, man, that scene with, you go through all the classic films that we've loved over the years, and you've always got a character, or even if it's a great action film, like dare I say, a Rocky movie, great Rocky movie. There's some character work. You follow the story of the hero, whose name isn't protagonist. He actually, I mean, how up its own ass is a movie that has to call its hero protagonist or man or whatever. It's like, just give us a fucking. Give us a name. Call him Barry, like something. That'd be awesome.
I don't think I've ever seen a film with the lead actor where he's nothing. He is just nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like he had it is literally like he walks in, action starts, the film goes for 2.5 hours. He walks out. There's no.
It's like, quite flat, isn't it?
Yeah, Red Heat has much more.
Oh my god, you're right.
You know, like I care more about Belushi than I do about the protagonist.
No,
Nige hates Belushi.
It's too far. Like for me, I followed it. Like I was sort of keeping up with what was going on, I suppose, but I just didn't care to. That was the killer for me. It's just like, this is bollocks. Like, even it's like, oh, I know what's going on, and it's bollocks. It's like I just don't care what's going on. I just want the credits to roll at this stage. It's just
there was a review.
That was the biggest disappointment.
On IMDb, I was looking some up. I was just quite interested to see what they said. So some of them, this one review I read was a good review, and it said, "Great film, necessary to watch twice, preferably with subtitles." I'm sorry, but if I've got to watch this film twice and with subtitles, you've lost me.
The only time you watch a film twice is when you've enjoyed it, and then like Fight Club, for instance. Like I've watched Fight Club. That might be a film to put on the list at some point. But I remember watching Fight Club at the cinema. Really enjoyed it. And then obviously the twist in the movie. You go, oh my God, I want to watch it again and see all those moments that I was ignorant to throughout the movie. And I think that's the kind of movie you watch twice, or something, like I say, something where there's a reveal or a moment which makes you go back and look at the film again.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse.
It's interesting, right? And I'd be fascinated if anyone's listening that you like this film. Please get in touch and let us know.
Yeah, defend
why,
it by all
and,
means.
Because I didn't know what these guys thought, and it was a weird one actually. I was a little bit nervous about coming on and talking about it because I knew I hated it, and I thought, what if you guys absolutely love this? But I'm kind of glad you both hate it as well.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet.
I can't imagine ever seeing that movie again unless I'm in hell and they say, okay, so for the rest of eternity you're going to be watching Tenet. I'm like, please just end it now, please. Like,
I'm very interested to hear what ratings you give this film following on from that. So.
Go on, Smith.
I wrote it down beforehand because I thought I wrote it down beforehand so I don't get influenced by your ratings. So I wrote 2 out of 10.
Vicious!
I cannot think of a film that I have seen that has been worse, and especially with the budget and the people associated with it. I feel like there's worse films, but they're for what it should be. I basically utter dog shit.
Well, wow. Like Smith, you'd give the Adam Sandler classic Click a better rating than this. In fairness to Click, from what I know about it, there is some really good character pieces in that.
Well, yeah, there you go.
We'll get to that another time.
We'll get to Click next time, hey?
Blimey, can't wait.
No, we won't, don't worry. What did you guys rate it as?
So before this, I'd actually rated it like on IMDb or whatever, which I do after I watch a film, almost as like a record of me having seen it. And I gave it a vote there, which is higher than what I'm going to give it now, because listening to you two, like listening to Etok go through the synopsis again, I want to sort of slam my head against the table. just like I don't need to know about this again.
If only you did that backwards, then.
Smith in the edit room, go for it. But yeah, like I said, I'm a huge Bond fan, and there, as I mentioned earlier, there is that element to it, and I think some of the bits are really well done. But yeah, I just can't connect with this film, unfortunately, and I hope Nolan comes back and does something absolutely fantastic that kind of make us eat our words, because I'm sure he's absolutely got it in him. But this one for me, it was a 4 out of 10.
Okay. No, I was going to say 4 as well. That was literally because that would
only 4-4-2.
You're 4-4-2, yeah. No, I was literally, just going not by characters. My reason for giving it 4 would be. Unique idea, poor execution.
An action.
Good action.
Tall woman, not very good.
Very, very, very tall woman. She's very beautiful. So yeah, that was it.
That was Tenet.
4.
But look,
wow.
I'll say it again, guys. If you like that film, or even if you don't, get in touch. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @offradarpodcast. Let us know what you think of Tenet, and don't hold back, because hey, look, it's subjective, right? Film, and these are just our opinions. But yeah, let us know.
Yeah, and we can be wrong, and we may have missed something completely obvious.
Well, I don't know about that on this one, but. Well, look, I know we just absolutely ripped Tenet to pieces there. And look, you might not agree with us, or you might agree with us, but either way, why don't you get in touch at offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us @offradarpodcast. Let us know your views about Tenet or any of the films that we have reviewed so far. Next week, we are reviewing The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is a 2020 release, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. It stars Eddie Redmayne, Alex Sharp, Sacha Baron Cohen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jeremy Strong, John Carroll Lynch, Frank Langella, Michael Keaton. I could keep going. There's so many people in it. But anyway, go and watch that film. Let us know what you think of it, and tune in next time. Keep sharing, keep reviewing, keep subscribing, keep sharing the love, and I'll stop saying keep. I'll speak to you next time on Off Radar.